independent bookstores are a endangered species in many regards because of our technology.
I don't think people truly understand that if they don't go to these independent bookstores, they're not going to be around forever. And independent bookstores represent, I think, some of the best book buying experiences that you're ever going to have.
I think you're right. I also think that we're like, in some respects, the boy with his finger in the dike. That the pressures of technology are such that, like publishers, I think bookstores are going to have to, even bookstores that deal a lot in used books, are going to have to figure out a way to take advantage of that kind of thing. One of the ways I think that it's a big problem, I know, but one of the ways that I think they can do it is to develop an online presence.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to ask Ani about that, but we didn't get time. But it's something that it seems to me that especially a used book dealer might find a way to offer books that are really special, like the one she mentioned.
Well, I mean, it's a large question, I think, or issue. If you want conglomerates to be the only one that carries books in this country, and becomes a monopoly on that, and can even at some point potentially dictate what books are bought and sold, you realize that independent booksellers are the bulwark standing against that. And I think, it behooves all of us to not maybe always take the easy route of going to online or going to Barnes & Noble, and visit a local bookstore and buy your books there and order your books there. They're so important.
I think you're absolutely right. I also think that there are other kinds of processes that some independent bookstores owners are going to have to get into. We're very fortunate in the Twin Cities. We have 3 or 4 or maybe more really good independent bookstores.
Oh yeah.
And they provide a really good service. And one of the things that you often hear people say is, well, the independent bookstores' time is over because of the pressures of the conglomerates and that kind of thing. But I can remember talking to bookstore owners in Des Moines, for example, who were saying, we're selling our bookstore to a major bookstore owner, that they weren't pressured to get out. They wanted to leave. These are people very much like Ani and John, who designed a process for themselves, who decided to buy a bookstore, worked out a way, bought the bookstore, and they're now doing these kinds of things because they want to do that.
Sure.
And a lot of people started independent bookstores for the same reason, and and that was years ago, and now they're 90, 95, and they're tired.
They want to stop.
They want to go to Arizona or whatever. And
right.
I think that's they want to stop. So a lot of independent bookstores are leaving because of that. I'm not saying that the economic pressures.
Well, I think it all goes back to the book industry being in such chaos right now, and
well, there's
another huge topic.
For a whole program.
But a lot of people are going to be affected by that,
That's
and
right.
Writers are, and bookstores are, and.
Well, one of the things we're seeing in that regard is a lot of writers taking charge of their own business.
Yeah.
And I think we should have a discussion about that sometime, because we're getting a sense of authors taking ownership of their own process. And this filtering system works really well, but it isn't perfect. You write a book, you get an agent, the agent decides yes or no, up or down in many cases. The agent then tries to sell the book to a publisher. The editors decide up or down in many respects. And there are a lot of books out there that don't ever get published because of individual decisions. It's a very narrow doorway that people have to go through. And I'm not saying it doesn't work, because it does work, and you can tell by the general quality of the books. And there are a lot of books that are self-published that are not very good, but there are a lot of really good self-published books out there.
Yeah, and there are also independent presses that are not New York presses that are that catch a lot of those books that would fall through the cracks because they're not commercial enough, or they're not,
But you end up still with a narrowing funnel. And I think that one of the things that happens, I think that may happen for bookstores, that at least if they ask me, and they haven't, but if they did, I would say to a bookstore, think about becoming a publisher.
Well, yeah, there's the whole thing of on demand and how that may change bookstores in the future. Yeah.
All those kinds of possibilities exist. Well, this has been an interesting discussion. I'm really pleased we had Ani on, and I suspect we could have her or John on and talk about a whole lot of things having to do with the bookstore business even more. And that whole idea of a sort of a semi-permanent bookstore in the Heritage Square at the State Fair is a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
And when you go to the State Fair, you really ought to do that. Well, we're pretty much out of time. We spend a lot of time with you, and we hope you've enjoyed this program. Let me take a moment to remind you there's a lot of useful information on our website, the address of which is www.minnesotacrimewave.org. You'll find links to previous programs, and you can subscribe to our newsletter, which is becoming an e-letter, by the way. Thanks to those of you who have contacted us. Remember, if you have comments, questions, or suggestions, we would like to hear from you. Email us, minnesotacrimewave@yahoo.com. And we'll see you next time as this continuing series runs on. And as always, read more mysteries.